How do I join, man? Can I join? Do I need to join? Oh, okay. Will you take me for a ride later on?
Yeah. Let's go.
Oh, no.
Oh man, that feels funny. It's just sort of creepy in here.
And we're back. Awesome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carlos Phoenix. I am from the Lounge Network, as you can see from here on my lower third. And I am live here with Robert Rose. We are in his studio apartment. Or it's a one bedroom. I'll give it a one bedroom title. It's a studio. Yeah. And right here next to me is Mr. Robert Rose.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
So today we're going to talk about Robert's show, which is RawTravel TV, and basically his ability to be a completely independent producer. And he goes out there. Now they can see us both live at the same time now. And the key, one of the reasons I wanted to kind of cover this, one, I do cover independent musicians and filmmakers and producers and all types of stuff. And for me, knowing Rob, having known him for a long time, I think it's a big deal to see what I believe is a successful television show being produced independently. And when I mean independent, well, you know what? I'm going to let you kind of get into that.
Okay.
So independent, go ahead.
Yeah. Independent, all right. Let me tell you about independent. Independent means that this entire week I've been on IT. I've been my own IT guy trying to get my email squared away, and it's still not squared away. And it's about 20 phone calls to the Philippines, 4 or 5 phone calls to Seattle, wherever GoDaddy is, and Microsoft, Apple. That's what independent is. Independent basically means you got to do everything yourself, man. And it carries a lot of misery, but it also carries a lot of fulfillment, because when something works, it's a beautiful thing. And I think for me, it's just I have a very specific point of view that I have as a human being, and it's constantly changing. And I just don't want to compromise that because of some other unrelated, situation. And I've worked in corporate America. It's been a long time. But, unless I can just say what I want to say, it doesn't feel real. So, it's not the biggest show in the world. It is doing well, but, better than I expected. But the reality is, big or small, I want to be able to say what I want to say and just be honest and real, really.
Yeah, I can imagine that being annoying. Now, just to kind of go over the beginnings.
Right.
You had wanted it to be kind of with a network, and if I remember the conversations earlier. Now, I used to do a show called RawTravel. Well, no, it was the Raw behind RawTravel, and where we used to talk about your show and the trials and tribulations about really getting it up and running, and then the fact that you had to go out and travel and do it, and the whole risk and the whole possibility of failure, all that type of stuff, all that fear factor. But now you're in your 4th season. And you kind of have a little bit of a normalcy kind of going, but of course it's still the struggle, So one of the things I saw on your Facebook feed was someone was like all excited and amped up about watching your episode, and then it didn't kind of appear.
Yeah.
There on the channel, and he's on all 50 states if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're in 100. Yeah, I think we're in all 50 states, but we're in 150 cities.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
And they tuned in, and for some reason the channel was not broadcasting. So, so that's hard because you're completely on your own, and then you have to kind of figure out why.
Yeah, and they're not supposed to do that, but it does happen because the reality is the NFL is going to take precedent over RawTravel. A breaking news story is going to take precedent over RawTravel. So it doesn't matter if we're RawTravel or if we're independent or not. Generally speaking, there's a pecking order, and we're at the bottom of that pecking order because we are independent. And, so there is a little bit of give and take, but I have to say that most of my affiliates, 95% of the time, run the show, not only in their regular time slot, but in additional time slots. And that's a great vote of confidence from those guys because they have many choices to air. There's way more TV shows than there are time slots available, and they choose our shows. And, so I really just tell viewers, I'm like, look, let me know about it. We'll address it. And I would say 80% of the time that someone emails me or puts a Facebook, comment, usually the show did air. Maybe their DVR didn't pick it up or the cable company, I can't even record it here in New York sometimes because of Time Warner Cable. Fighting that bureaucracy is just too much work for what it's worth. So I have to manually record it. And so there are periods that technology just doesn't work, dude. Like, it's great that we're doing live feeds, but let's face it, man, technology doesn't work a big percentage of the time.
I hear you, and right now, just looking at this, we're a live stream right now on Facebook, and I appreciate Mark. I see you, and Edgar. I see you, and I see we have right now a few viewers on our feed.
Hey,
and
right.
We'll get to your viewer question.
My mom's watching.
That's
watching.
Awesome.
Hey, Mom.
And we're going to get to your questions. That's one of the key things about we're doing the live broadcast is you now have somewhat of a fan base, and they'll be able to come and interact with us, and that's going to be cool. But I'm going to refrain from all that towards the end of the show. Technology is one. I mean, you're using some really great equipment, and I'll ask you about that in a moment. But the fact that we're in a changing atmosphere, where cable TV is now going online. I don't want to have my TV show where I have to argue with networks as to when it can show. I want to be able to just say, I want to just do it how I want to do it, whether it's YouTube or Facebook Live or any of these other platforms, and it's all new to us. Yeah. So anyway, that being said, let's talk a little bit about your season.
Yeah, the upcoming season.
So right
four.
now you're editing your fourth season. You've covered a lot of locations, South America. You've gone to Africa. He's like, wait.
Yeah. Waving at my mom.
And
everybody.
And okay,
wow,
so
I love technology.
Gene, awesome. Thank you so much.
From
bonjour.
People from Haiti.
Bonjour. How are you?
I think it's from Haiti.
And just wanted to make sure that you understood that this is actually live. Anyway. So first of all, when you deal with seasons, you kind of tackle a country or a continent. What goes into that decision making?
It's very different for different destinations. Like we're getting ready to go to Canada, so we're going to shoot in Montreal and Quebec City. So what goes into that episode is very different than, say, what happened in Cuba, which Cuba was a unique experience because what I did not want to do in Cuba was have the Fidel Castro tour. I didn't want to be Michael Moore going in there saying, wow, look at the healthcare, or the classic wow, these cars are old, and look at the buildings. And I think I heard the director of Fast and Furious 3 on an NPR interview. He's like, Cuba's great. I hope it never changes. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? Cuba has to change because people don't have enough to eat. They can't say what's on their mind. It is beautiful, and the cars are old. But basically, I wanted to show the real Cuba, not the Cuba that most people see. And the reason that people see that Cuba is typically because they were large productions, so they had to follow proper protocol and get permission, from the Cuban government. So we termed our episode Cuba Undercover. And, man, I was scared. I would have been the worst spy ever, because I was nervous the entire time. I was sweating. I was looking around like this. I could have sworn we were being followed. I just knew at any time I was just going to be interrogated, because that happens. This is not... it wasn't paranoia. As I told my producer, I said, you're only paranoid if you don't get caught. But if we'd gotten caught, then we would have been like we weren't careful enough. So we took as many precautions as possible. We weren't doing anything that would be illegal anywhere else, only in Cuba. Only in Cuba.
Now, wait, so
Cuba,
so you kind of had to say I'm going to tackle Cuba.
Right.
But you knew that there was limitations on that.
Well, I knew that we were going to have to be very discreet. So what we did is we just posed as regular tourists, which now is a good time to do that because there is an U.S. embassy there if you do get into trouble. So it wasn't as risky as if I'd have done this, say, in 2009 when I first went. But the reality is probably we would have been okay. I just didn't want to get the Cubans in trouble because they're the ones that get into trouble There's a joke in Cuba that says if a Cuban were to stab a tourist, if a tourist were to stab a Cuban with a knife, the policeman would arrest the Cuban and say, "Why did you run into that tourist knife? Why did you run into their knife?" Because there's a huge double standard there. And the Cuban people are really, not treated with a lot of respect from the government. The good news is that's changing, and that's what we wanted to bring. We wanted to see how Cuba is changing, show people a snapshot of what it's really like for Cubans, and just to get beyond the romanticism or the demonizing, which is the other side, and show a more balanced picture of what really goes on in a place. And that's my goal. And you're always going in with a point of view. I had a strong point of view about Cuba because I had been before, and I had interviewed some punks there, and they got arrested, and just for talking to me. And I had that backdrop in my head. But I'm happy to say that things seemed a little bit better this time, and I think they'll continue to get better.
So now, how are you approaching this? Were you walking in with your big cameras?
No, we shot a lot with iPhones. We shot with 7Ds, which looked like a photography camera, which we do anyway. And then we did have a larger camera. It's not that large. We never travel with huge camera gear. The thing is, we go a lot of places and we don't report into the government and say, we're here to film a show. Thailand, Vietnam, also a communist government, no problems filming, Yeah, so, because basically, by and large, whatever we do is probably going to increase tourism. But the thing is, I don't want to be forced to say something good about a place that I don't feel. And I didn't want to sit there and say that Cuba was this wonderful place and you just got to go there. I think it is a wonderful place, and I think you should go there. But also want to show the other side of it and what's it like for a Cuban. And the same thing in Haiti.
Going to a country where there's a government of dictatorship, and then you hear sometimes get in trouble by local governments.
Yeah.
Not only north, south is also very, and then Thailand.
Yeah, we were in Thailand. Thailand doesn't have, like if you criticize the king, that's a big deal. So you just got to, but those are cultural norms that every traveler or tourist should know before they go. And as far as North Korea is concerned, not planning on going, because that's just too hardcore and gnarly for me, man. I'm not going to do that. No. And if I did, I wouldn't be on here talking about it before I went. So maybe I've already gone. And but. By and large, man, we're a travel show. We're not a political show. We're not into politics. I just believe that human rights, basic human rights like freedom of speech, is not political. That's human. And so I'm not a political show. We don't have an agenda. We're basically just trying to show what it's like to travel to a place,
Now, all right, so I'm getting some. Can you hear me, guys? I want to make sure that I'm getting some comments about microphones. Are you able to hear me?
Someone asked if they could travel to Cuba. Can anyone travel to Cuba now? Do you want me to address that
sure,
one?
Absolutely. While we get some answers on the microphone stuff.
Yeah. So basically, you could travel to Cuba. There's two ways to travel to Cuba. One is you can file a visa here and pay about 5 times more. Or you can do like me and just go to Mexico first and then grab a visa from Mexico and then go to Cuba and pay like $20. But you be the judge of that. Do your research. But basically, I think anybody on a cultural exchange, and that's a pretty loose definition now. So they've eased those restrictions, and I think flights begin in October. So for a first-time traveler, maybe do it the right way would be my recommendation. Just in case you get into trouble or whatever, you have an embassy there now, so it's a lot better. I think. I went in 2009, and I had a friend who went. He was a filmmaker who went for the Havana Film Festival. He never came back. That's not, and that wasn't good, and that really never got covered in the press. So that was hardcore. And so when I had that backdrop about Cuba, I don't think it's a dangerous place, but the fact that you can't get money out of an ATM presents some issues. Wi-Fi and Hotmail, email is savvy about it. Okay, I see some other questions here. Let me try to if you want, people, Philippines, yeah, absolutely. Human rights everywhere. Where's Crowbot? I'm trying to see. Oh, thanks, guys, for all the comments. Let's see. Oh, in Cleveland, we used to come on around 9 or 10 a.m. on Sunday. Now it's at midnight. Yeah, we changed affiliates. That happens sometimes, Edgar. And so from what I understand, good news is we're going to run at 10 p.m. for Season 4. And we're going to run a double run. So we're going to run at 10, and then at 10:30 you'll see the week before episode. That's what I've been told for Cleveland, and we'll be able to confirm that. So, hang in there, man. We do switch affiliates, sometimes by choice, sometimes by not. Sometimes in Cleveland, the reason we switched is because NBC began running me at 3 in the morning, which was against the contract. So I switched affiliates because it could, and because I don't like doing business with people who don't live up to their agreements. And then in Memphis, we've got a new affiliation coming up on NBC. We're going to be coming on Sunday nights after the news, 11 or 11:30 in Memphis. So we're really excited about that. But by and large, we try to keep it consistent, as much as I can. But, leverage, we don't have a lot of leverage. So, I do the best I can, get the best time period I can, hope the station runs it. And like I said, we have really good relationships with our affiliates, and most of them really treat us really well.
All right, guys, so just to quickly address some of the audio issues, I apologize. So when I have both cameras on, unlike a lot of live streams that you see out there, sometimes the person is in a totally different location around the world. I'm actually sitting right next to him. So the mics were picking both of us up when I had both cameras on live, so I apologize for that. But right now we're just going to do a regular two-shot, switching back and forth. So now we should be fine, and that's what happens when you do things live. But anyway.
Hey, dude, I'm impressed with your technology. We got George here, too, by the way, behind the scenes, man. What's up, George? Well, we'll show you a picture of him later. Come here, George. Get in the shot, man. Come here first.
So that's my brother, and he's helping us with camera.
Trip on a cord, man. This is George, Carlos's brother, Colombian. Yeah, come on, George.
Hey, guys.
All right.
Okay, so there's a couple questions I have. Actually, let me. There's one that I thought was interesting that Edgar had pointed out. What's been your main health scare when traveling, especially now with Zika and that type of stuff? And we all know that you're not supposed to drink water, all that type of thing. Has there been a situation where that's been an issue?
Look, I've been really ill a couple of times, but not like hospitalized, and that's cool. First time I went to Mexico, I was out for a couple of days, just really couldn't leave bed because I wasn't drinking the water, but I had spaghetti. Long story why I was in Mexico City having spaghetti. And I love Mexican food, but sometimes you got to eat where the crew wants to eat, and they want to have Italian. So I had spaghetti, and I guess it had been boiled in some bad water. So I really literally couldn't leave bed for 2 days. Luckily, back then we have allocated like 7 days per shoot, which was way too much. So we had more time, and we were able to produce an episode. For me personally, that's been the biggest health scare. But I was very conscious while I was in Cuba and in Haiti that, regardless of what Michael Moore says, that there's great health care in Cuba, that's really for the Cuban government. Because I know firsthand that for the people, there's no sheets on the bed, that you can go in with a really minor issue and never come out, which is what happened to my buddy. You just don't want to get ill abroad if you can, and so you should buy travel insurance in case you need to get helicoptered out. But of course, in a place like Cuba, now relations have normalized. You could probably get out. Back then, when my buddy went, he couldn't get out. And but the biggest health scare with us as a crew was one of my producers when we were in Eastern Europe got sick in Bulgaria, and it started off as a migraine, and it just kept getting worse. And we had to take her to the emergency room, and it was in this little town by the Black Sea in Bulgaria. And we had a local Bulgarian with us, a wonderful lady who was showing us around, and thank goodness, otherwise we would have really been in trouble. But she went to the hospital, and she was just really dehydrated, So they put an IV in her arm, and they missed the blood vessel, hit the muscle. Her arm swelled up like the size of a tennis ball, and most of it better because the medicine never made it in. And finally, when we got to the capital, Sofia, I was really worried. She hadn't eaten in like 3 or 4 days. We took her to the emergency room. They gave her an IV, and this time they hit the blood vessel, and she was better in 2 or 3 hours. But that was really a sobering experience of what can go wrong. And it's not the fact that people, I mean, that could happen here in the United States as well. I mean, don't really have a doctor here in New York City because they're just running you in and out, and you don't feel like you're getting good health care. I don't have a dentist here. I still go to my dentist in L.A., Los Angeles. And, so that can happen anywhere. But when you're abroad, you don't speak the language. Let's just face it, man. Traveling while sick is not fun. It's not. So don't get sick.
So don't get sick. All right. So a couple things I wanted to touch upon. So, for example, what seems to be your biggest challenge producing your show? Is it the travel portion, or is it dealing with the channels and having to deal with the negotiations and making sure that you have a good enough coverage that people can actually get to your show?
Yeah, I would say the affiliation, that's grown over 4 years, and it's gotten easier because the stations believe in us now. But when I first started, it was extremely difficult. I went on a plane for 3 months, and I never saw my apartment. I did spend some time at home with my family in Tennessee, but basically I was gone for I left in January, I got back to my apartment in May, and every day, some days I would be in 3 cities at once. I would fly into a place, I'd wake up in one city, fly to another city, do business, and then fly to another city to get ready to do business the next day. That was brutal, that was tough. But today that part's getting a little bit easier. I have some help now from a company called Bright Line Distribution. So I guess it's the challenge of cranking out, 20 episodes and trying to make each one as good as possible. There's some episodes, and you're always going to be more proud of some than others. I was really proud of what we did in Pine Ridge. I really liked what we did in Cuba coming up. And for some reason, people love Norway, which I loved as well, but I wasn't expecting it to be so popular. Chattanooga, same thing. I wasn't expecting that. So what I like versus what other people like might be two different things. But basically, the biggest challenge is just, producing this high volume of episodes independently and trying to keep the quality up and getting higher. We always want to get better year after year. And the other challenge is watching myself age on camera in high definition and seeing how tired I am. And just saying, honestly, man, I would love to just be traveling, no cameras, nothing. If you really wanted, I just like to travel, man. I really love to travel, and but I also like telling stories, and I love the relationship we have with our viewers. We don't have the biggest social media following. I know that because I basically do a terrible job at it, and I haven't hired anybody. But I don't care, man. It's organic, and I love the people, man, that are sending in questions right now and care about the show, and they can really keep us going.
So let me add on to that. If you guys are watching, first, thank you so much for coming. It's thanks to you that I even want to do this type of thing. The fact that I can catch you while you're spending a good Sunday, probably chilling away from the heat, and you're able to sit back online and enjoy some good content. But what I would really appreciate you guys do right now, if you can, is right down there or whatever application you're using, please share and see if your friends would like to join us. And that way we can really make this a more successful show. We don't have advertisers right now, but that's kind of like the direction I want to be able to go to. And that's also something I got to deal with Facebook or YouTube or whatever, because they have certain limitations. But anyway, that'll end that part. So if you want to tackle some of the questions online, I know there was a few questions about the show and you basically exactly your favorite place to visit. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, my favorite place to visit. That I can't say. I love Southeast Asia, like Laos. I call it Laos. Some people call it Laos, but it's actually Laos. That's what they call it. Medellin. I call it Medellin, but it's supposed to be Medellin, but I call it Medellin because that seems proper. Colombia is one of my favorites. And Eastern Europe, love it. And what do these places have in common? Well, Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe in particular tend to be really, really safe, really laid back, inexpensive. Colombia, safer than you think. Relatively speaking, man, it's not as dangerous as 99% people think. It's one of the safest destinations in Latin America. And some of the friendliest people.
My wife is going to love that you said that.
Oh, man, I love Colombia, and I can't wait to go back there. I have so many friends. We shot it in season 1, first episode, And it's hard for me to watch because I was so stiff on camera, and I was just like, like trying to memorize stuff. And but I want to go back and do it justice. Hopefully, that's on my bucket list. And Latin America in general, I love Latin because I could speak Tarzan Spanish, and if you could just speak Tarzan whatever, you can do well. But I cannot speak Tarzan Russian. I can say spasiba, da niet. But I can't speak Russian, so it makes it more difficult, a little less enjoyable. The good news is there's so many people all over the world that speak some English now, even though it might be rough. And, man, don't underestimate sign language. It's like, you need shampoo? Just do that. I mean, like shampoo, if you're hungry. Like, sign language works. It's awesome.
Now, it's funny. I'm looking at some of the comments. Someone says if you go to, I think it's Kentucky? I'm sorry, Indianapolis or Indiana. You have a place to stay for free. So, yeah.
Someone said in Kentucky? I got a place to stay.
No, it was. I think it was Indy. They said Indy. So I'm guessing or no, Indiana.
Indiana. Is that India or Indiana? Big difference. Hey, I appreciate it. I'll be there. It's all good. Someone asked me, did I have my content in place for Cuba before we left? Diane asked that one. Not my sister, but a friend of mine who has been to Cuba. No, not really. We couldn't do it. We couldn't plan ahead with Cuba. We had to sort of wing it, but without naming names, because on the credits, his name is going to be, well, you know what? I'm going to make you watch the credits. But there's a guy that went with me who's been to Cuba several times, has a lot of contacts there, speaks Spanish. I left a lot of it up to him because the way he's gone to Cuba is the authentic way that he does it. I mean, he does things and stays places that even I am like, dude, I'm too old for that. I got to have some comforts, So he pitched me ideas and we went for it, but a lot of it we just had to do on the fly while we were there. And I got to be honest with you, those are some of my favorite episodes, even though it makes me really nervous because the last thing you want to do is spend all that money and get somewhere. And I'm always afraid of not having an episode, not shooting enough. So what we end up doing is usually overshoot. And that's why you'll see things like Road Trip. We're like the Native Americans, man. They ate every part of the buffalo. We use every bit of our content, if at all possible. If I'm chewing gum, I'm like, well, throw it on the internet then, if I'm chewing gum and I like, you can't use that.
All right, so I'm going to take a really quick break. And now what that means is I'm going to show you just a moment of one of his episodes. I guess it would be your Cuba trailer. And yeah, if you haven't seen it. Also, if you guys would decide to catch this later or maybe share it with a friend that maybe obviously can't watch the episode, the show will be on my website, theloungenetwork.com. And you'll see it on my little lower third in a little bit. But right now I'm just going to show you this Cuban trailer. And then we're going to touch upon Haiti as well, because that's one of the locations you did go to. So I hope you guys enjoy this.
Cuba. For many North Americans, the very name produces an emotional, even visceral response. Few relationships have more painfully illustrated governmental ineptitude, stubbornness, and incompetence than the one between the United States and Cuba. But hindsight, as they say, is 20/20, and it's time to put the past where it belongs, in the rear-view mirror. It's finally time for our governments to stop demonizing and our media to stop romanticizing. Cuba is more than a cliche stuck in time. Yes, it's a special place, but it has real people with very real problems. We're going undercover to try to truly discover the real Cuba, and if change is finally happening now. This is RawTravel, Cuba Undercover. Travel. For some, it's a luxurious escape, or maybe an adrenaline-filled adventure. But if you're like me, it's a precious opportunity to discover and to give back. It's time to get real. It's time to get raw. It's time for RawTravel.
All right, we are back. So cool. Nobody had to run to the bathroom, so that's okay. And just wanted to show you guys basically the kind of production that he has, and also a hint of what the Cuban episode is going to look like. Now, he's also gone to Haiti, and we're going to touch upon that in a second. But one of the questions I had, and then we'll hit into Haiti, like today, for example, they announced that 4 Olympic swimmers were robbed in Brazil. And if you've seen any YouTube videos, there's a lot of safety concerns where the tourists, just people just walking through the streets, and you just think somebody's crossing the street. Next thing you know, they're jumping on you and grabbing your stuff. So for you, were there any precautions for such a situation? You're going to a country like Cuba or let's say Mexico or South America or Europe where it may not be the most secure. Have there been concerns? And I know there's stories where you have been either, let's say, attacked or robbed. So if you want to touch a little bit on that.
I have been robbed, but in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, case in point, Brazil is, because there's so much poverty next to so much wealth, and because, I just saw things happen, 90% of it petty crime, but I was walking along Copacabana Beach alone at night, and if you look in the guidebook under dangers and annoyances, it's number 1, don't walk alone, and I was like, oh, man. And the thing is, what happened, and my advice for people is this: you get comfortable, and you should get comfortable. Nothing is as dangerous as it sounds while you're sitting in your living room in the United States. But I got to be honest with you. When I'm traveling, when I was in Colombia, I was like, man, what's going on in the U.S.? They think we're the dangerous place. And I sort of have to agree with them if you watch the news and believe what's happening. And it is, disturbing, the violence. But in most cases, it's very petty theft. In Ecuador, in Quito, a lot of tourists. I sort of walked off where there were a lot of people, and next thing I know, I was surrounded by 4 guys who wanted to take my camera, and I had just been robbed the year before in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. Thankfully not in a violent manner, just sort of in a stupid manner. I put my bags in the taxi, and he took off. And that's also under dangers and annoyances for Buenos Aires, is don't get into a fake taxi. So, as a guy, I probably have different concerns. The main thing is, I'm concerned when we have our equipment. Not necessarily because it's so expensive. It's actually probably on the lower end because of that reason, because we're so rough on our equipment, because it could get stolen, because it gets hot, sand gets in stuff and ruins it. It's just a hard show to produce on equipment, so you don't really want a $50,000 camera with you. But still, you don't want to lose your $2,000 camera either. Because of the value of the camera, and also because now you're out of business. You're not filming anymore, and that has other repercussions because you've paid your crew and you've flown down there. But probably the most dangerous spot that I was in and didn't even realize it was southern Honduras, on the border of Nicaragua. We were stranded waiting on a bus, and I don't think it was like dangerous per se. It was just like there's nothing there. There's no reason to be there, and people were just sort of in a foul mood, and because it was just sort of a miserable place to be. Northern Honduras, very touristy, very nice, the polar opposite. But a lot of the places that are most dangerous are places where there are the most tourists. And in a place like Rio, when you have the Olympics, that's going to happen. I knew of course it's going to happen. And you can't let that stop you because the chances are small, and if you are just alert, chances are you're going to be fine. Every situation that I was in danger or did something stupid was because I did something stupid. That don't walk along Copacabana Beach alone at night. Don't have your expensive camera out in Quito, Ecuador, in a very dark, shady area. And don't take a fake taxi in Argentina.
All right, so we're going to take a question on comments here. So I got Edgar. Again, he's throwing all the questions at us. I know that Haiti just finished paying off their debt to France in the billions of dollars. It just started their independence about 300 years ago. Have you seen any improvement on the economy? And unfortunately, it says see more. So I don't know what the rest of the question is. Okay, he's going to take a look.
Of that country, Santo Domingo is enjoying a nice prosperous. Yeah, the difference between Haiti and Dominican Republic is very tangible. You can see it. You can feel it. I don't know if you guys, I think Edgar, I think you've talked about it before, but Dominicans, the treatment of Haitians by Dominicans, it's sort of like, for lack of a better analogy, the United States and immigration from Mexico, with certain people. Doesn't bother me, but certain people it does. And so it's worse than that. And so it's because if you're immigrating to Dominican Republic, you know that you're in a dire situation. And Haiti is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. And has the economy improved since 300 years ago? I don't know, man. I think it's gotten worse. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. There's a lot of NGOs there, but there's also sort of this business of poverty ethos that's taken over.
Corruption, too.
A lot of corruption, and the NGOs. And what basically, from what I read this great book. First of all, the guidebook is great. It's a BRAT guide called BRADT, A Guide to Haiti. Paul, somebody wrote it. He knows I'm a fan. Sorry, Paul, I couldn't remember your last name. But there's also a great book called Travesty in Haiti. You should read it because it sort of tells you why things are the way they are in Haiti. And the United States bears some responsibility for that. We flooded them with food from our farmers, subsidized, and basically put their farmers out of business. And so now they're dependent on us. And so all the farm people had to move to Port-au-Prince and try to eke out a living. And that's just one instance. And now the food that is supposed to go to poor people ends up via corruption through the NGOs, ends up on the black market for really cheap. And that, so if you're a farmer in Haiti, you can't make a living. Nobody's going to buy your food because it's much cheaper coming from the U.S. I hope I answered that question okay. It's a little above my field of expertise.
Now, all right, so let me ask you another question. Now, outside of traveling, you did mention you love to travel. Now, why do you do this show? Like, what are who are you trying to reach by doing this show and the type of show that you do? Like, what's your message to about the show?
I mean, I think maybe what distinguishes us from other travel shows, and by the way, that's why I started the travel show, RawTravel, was because I was very dissatisfied with other travel shows. I liked Anthony Bourdain. I thought, and I was a fan. For some reason, I haven't watched him in the last, maybe because it feels like work now, or maybe I'm secretly jealous. I don't think so, but maybe. Yeah, I'm sure he probably doesn't even know he exists. But basically, I was like, there's so much more to travel than food. And he's a celebrity. And I wanted to show an everyday person's experience, like somebody that nobody knows. How are you going to travel? And I wanted to show that travel is possible because the message that the United States media has largely given is that if you want to travel, you got to be famous or rich or both, because it's always about these really super luxurious destinations, which, if you ask me, not only are expensive and suck the joy out of travel, they're inauthentic and they're boring. So, there's a whole bunch of people already traveling the way we travel, way more hardcore than we are, and they're doing it on this really, shoestring budget. And the thing is, when I was traveling like that, I actually saved money by traveling than living in the United States, and I wasn't working. So, I could not work and live in New York City or not work and live in Colombia. What do you think is going to be cheaper? And so that's what I did. And it just taught me so many things about life. It made me, I think, a better person. And it filled my need for curiosity, my desire for my curious nature, I guess. And it basically made me more empathetic to people. And empathetic, is that the word I'm looking for? Empathetic? I'm more empathy. Yeah, sorry. And I wanted to share that with people. And that's why I did it. And that's why I'll continue to do it.
Now, let's see, you've touched upon why you're doing it. But so you talked about being able to survive in other countries. Now, you've been now a good chunk of the world. Being able to step away from the show, not thinking about production and stuff like that. Let's think about where you would live. Now you've been able to expose yourself to different things. You've mentioned Colombia, so let's remove that off the map for a second. There's clearly places that are cheaper to live and have a certain lifestyle that you'd say, oh, wow, this is actually really awesome. I can't wait to come back or live here or whatever. What would those kind of locations look like? Give me 2 or 3 that you think, you know what, you guys have to go there because blah.
Yeah, well, there's where you live and then there's where you travel. Like I want to go back to Haiti because the culture was just wow, it was nuts. They still have voodoo culture alone was fascinating. They kept wanting to take me to see a real zombie, which I can't imagine would be a pleasant experience, but something that you want to know that it's there. They have Restovics. These are child slaves. Not because that's a pleasant experience, but because I want to know what's happening in the world. I don't want to be in my bubble not knowing that this happens, because then maybe I can talk about it, tell other people about it, as we are in the show for the episodes that you'll see. Hopefully not in a heavy-handed way, but in an entertaining way. So that's where I want to travel, but I would never live in Haiti in a million years. Not me. There are plenty of people that do, but it's not for me. I would live probably, I like cities where you can walk. Because I've been used to New York City, I like the convenience of living in New York, and also international cities where you're exposed to different languages and cultures just on the street, because you're always meeting really interesting people. I wouldn't mind if New York City was a little friendlier. It's a very sort of confrontational place, and there's a lot of friendly people here. It's just got that aura of negativity. Like if you talk to somebody, they think you're crazy. You're like, dude, I'm just saying hello. Like don't, chill out. I just said hello. Not a big deal. You don't have to avert eye contact, because they've been conditioned. And trust me, there's really good people here. You just have to get through, that sort of layer. And so I would like a friendlier place that maybe you could walk around. Madrid comes to mind. I only spent 24 hours there once, but it struck me as a really cool city, easy to get around, not terribly expensive. And, the thing about Europe is if you're in a place like Madrid, there's just so many places you can go. Train travel is a great way to travel. But then I also think about Southeast Asia as well, because I really like Buddhist culture or the Buddhist philosophy, because it's not a religion, it's a philosophy, and it's a wonderful philosophy because it's about respect of everything. And when you have a culture that influenced by something that good, wow, dude, I've never felt more at peace, more positive or optimistic about my fellow man than when I lived in Southeast Asia. Now, I spent not that much time there, so I hear there are layers beneath that may not be so happy-go-lucky, but it's tempting. It was tempting to stay there. It really was. Sorry, man. I just went off on a diatribe. I forgot my question.
Your favorite, place to live in respect to being able to survive and financial and stuff.
Yeah. So I think about it, man. Trust me. I mean, I just wish I had a couple more lifetimes. I really do. There's still many places we want to go, both with the show and without. I want to do the Siberian Express. I want to do the railroad. I'm reading a great book now. I'm going to shout it out. It's called The Humorless Ladies of Border Control. I think that's it. And it's by the lead singer of a band called The Hold Steady. And he went and toured it, and he went to a lot of places I went. I've already been in touch with him. I'm like his stalker fan. And, he and I might do an episode. And, but I want to do the Siberian Express. I want to go to Kazakhstan. I want to go to Israel, Palestine. I want to do the Middle East. Not a war-torn area. I'm not looking to, I'm not Vice. This isn't Vice. We're not trying to exploit, war misery throughout the world. We're trying to actually take you to places you can actually travel to. Even Haiti. You can go to Haiti, man. Haiti's doable. You just got to be a certain type of traveler to do it,
Now, I know something you said triggered my head, and I was going to question that. But let's step away from the travel now, and let's talk a little bit about you. Here people are watching. They've watched you possibly on television. Let's go a little bit into your normal day. So here we are in New York. We're in Robert's apartment. And describe your work day now that you're not out there shooting and the excitement of life. What's it like waking up in the morning and then you have episodes to edit? Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm glad you asked that, Carlos, because a lot of people, and I'm okay with it, they think, wow, you have the great life. What a great job you have. Well, first, it's not really a job if you're sort of doing it yourself. It's more like no one's like cutting me a check or anything like that. Maybe at the end of the year, if there's any money left over, I can, refill my checking account from zero. But That's not why I do it. Of course, I want it to be a viable business, and so I'm very happy that it has been. The sacrifices are many. But when I wake up on a typical day, the travel is like the good part. That's the part people see on TV. And sometimes I get annoyed at myself because I think I'm being too glib when I'm on TV, and I'm like, thinking I'm funny, and I'm like, dude, you're just, trying to be a ham like everybody else, and I don't want to do that, because if I had any talent, I would already, probably had my own TV show, and I wouldn't have had to do it myself. So I don't really I'm not auditioning to be on the Travel Channel. But when you do see me, I'm happy because I'm traveling, and that's what I love to do the most. And I'm producing. So those are my two favorite things. But the vast majority of my time is either writing a script, overseeing some of the edits. We have great editors that I work with. I have a rotating crew. But I wake up every morning, I start coffee, open up the window shades, turn on the computer, and either work on a script or check emails. And checking emails is the thing that I hate the most, and it's the thing I have to do the most. And then I just have a list of things to do that I never get done, and I usually end up working, till I just can't work anymore. I take some breaks. I walk around, go to the gym, go for a run. And then if I'm traveling in the U.S., I might be doing more business travel. I might be on a morning show. That's fun. I like that. And this is fun. This is fun. This is the fun part. So I wish I could just do the fun part and none of the garbage work, but it doesn't work like that. So most of it is work. Most of it is drudgery, routine. But you know what? It beats doing other jobs I've had. I worked for UPS. I roofed for half a day. I did roofing once. This is back in college. Half a day. I fell off the roof and basically got fired. And then after college, I worked in media. I sold advertising, which ironically is the thing I hate the most.
That's how we met.
Right now.
We met with an event.
Yeah, I was selling. Yeah. I was an executive producer. I was like behind the scenes, never like writing scripts or not doing the creative process very much. And slowly I sucked into that side of the business, which is a much less lucrative side of the business, But the ad sales and the business side of it, I know how to do. I just don't enjoy it, but I do it because that's what allows me to do the creative side, which is what I enjoy.
Now,
I go to Austin all the time because my sister lives there. To film, I don't know. You got to talk to the Texas Tourism Bureau. They need to show some love. But I'd love to go to Austin. I think we are going to Houston, and maybe we'll hit Austin right after that. I want to address that. I've been threatening to do that. I just got to find, if you know a good travel agent, let me know, because I can't be doing travel planning, but we could partner up with the travel agent, someone that does these type of tours, and they just got to make it easy for us. But yeah, I'd love to bring a group with us on certain, try that out. Yeah, definitely.
Now, okay, so you got a little bit of the raw of the raw travel. You got the raw of the work that it takes to make this show. What's your raw in terms of Robert? What other things do you want to accomplish now that you kind of have this ball rolling? There's, in terms on a personal level, on an emotional level. I know in your episodes there's a couple things you do. One, you're really into your punk rock. We can touch upon that. And two, there's a portion of every episode where you're giving back, and you talk about that. You talk to nonprofit organizations. Let's delve into a little bit of that for a second.
Yeah, I think the giving back, that's sort of the thing that, I think I'm by nature a selfish person, no more than other people, but I think we naturally are. But what happens is when I traveled, it unlocked a part of me that discovered that when I thought about somebody besides myself, I was a happier human being. So when I'm giving back or focusing on that, it's not because I'm trying to, it's not even about the specific, place that we're covering, necessarily supporting it, though, that's nice. That's a side benefit. But more like an example of how this enhances the travel experience, especially when you're in a third world country like the Philippines, for example, where we went and saw just this town that was on a garbage dump, and kids in particular, I don't know why, man, they touch a spot in me, and I know they do for everyone else as well, but especially these kids that are growing up in these third world countries, and their only toy is like a plastic bag on a string, and they're so happy, and they're just joyous, and it's infectious. And so, that to me, though, is still a selfish act when you're giving back. But that's a good selfish act, as opposed to trying to acquire as much money or power or, be manipulative or whatever. So, that's how we do that. As far as punk music, I think my philosophy on that, and people, I realize that most people that watch the show probably are not punk fans. But the reason it's in there is because it's a huge part of who I am. It's one of the most fascinating things I've ever been associated with. And RawTravel began as a documentary about punk music, and it grew into a more commercial enterprise called RawTravel. And what I love about punk music is that the people in the scene are so good. They're good people, and they are, not everybody. There's definitely some people that have problems there, but they're not what you expect. And they are very intelligent people, as I'm learning through this book that I'm reading, The Humorless Ladies of Border Control, because he's a punk singer. And this guy is incredibly well read and writes in a manner I wish I could write. These people that I've met through the punk scene in all these different countries all have one thing in common, and that's just I love being around them. They're super cool people. And they share insights into the culture. So it doesn't matter if I was into needlepoint. The idea is not about the needlepoint community. It's about the people in the needlepoint community showing their culture through needlepoint. So it just happens to be punk music. But it can also be ska, reggae. And, just so I don't put too much emphasis on punk music, I make sure to include other types of music, which you're going to see in the upcoming episode. You're even going to have sort of almost like a hip-hop thing in Trinidad. And the reason is because in Haiti, because the guy, his name is Freedom. He's a great artist. His music is socially conscious, is uplifting to the people. And you know what? He's a good guy. And people know him. And so it doesn't always have to be punk. It just needs to be independent, socially conscious, and provide insight into the culture.
Now, how do you touch upon that? Like, who do you contact to say, hey, do you know of any independent bands that are socially conscious? How does that work?
Well, do I know any independent bands?
So, how do you approach that? Because I know in your episodes you find them, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. Did he just walk down the street and stumble onto them, or was there what's the setup?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we're there. When I was in Cuba the first time, I had no intention of filming anything, but I had my camera just to get photos and videos. And I asked a waiter, where do the punks hang out? And he's like, do you have punks? I was just curious. And he's like, oh, you mean Los Freakies? And I was like, the Freakies? And he's like, yeah. And he said, oh, you go on a Friday, Saturday night, this place, KAG. So we went, and I was blown away. Hundreds of not just punk, but alternative, emo, metal, basically anybody that was different. And they were harassed by the police, but they were also allowed to gather. And, so that was just spontaneous, and that happens a lot more than you think. But we do try, I have people do research. We try to find somebody I like their music or something about them, or they have an interesting story. We don't just throw, yellow pages and, or Facebook and just try to pick anybody. We try to find, someone that has a story. The reason we don't do commercial artists is that this isn't a commercial mainstream show. It's about independent, DIY, do it yourself. So that's the kind of music. And there's plenty of musicians like that. And you also don't have rights issues and things like that.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I cover independent artists, and a lot of that's just to avoid the whole label conflict stuff. All right, so there's a couple of comments. One was from Gene, if you want to read that one. Talked about Jean.
Indonesia. Basically Tahiti. We want to do it. I think it's a scheduling, and it's also it's like 20 episodes sounds like a lot, but when you already have tourism bureaus and things like that, it's like that's a long distance, and so we just got to fit into the schedule. That's the thing about French Polynesia. And one of the episodes that I'm really excited about that we're doing in February, which I think is the rainy season in Tahiti, so we wouldn't be going to Tahiti then, but is Myanmar. and we're going to be on a sailboat. The whole episode is going to be on a sailboat, which goes to these very rural villages in Myanmar, and they only use barter. They don't even use currency. So that's going to be super cool, I think. And I love the fact that we can just stay in one place, because one of the hardest things is just going from a place to place, carrying your gear, from place to place, and just packing up and not even unpacking for the night and then packing up. It's really hard when we travel.
All right, so I think we're going to do the last question, but let me see. Well, my wife says, what's your favorite place you've traveled so far? But I think we've kind of gone over that. It sounds like Colombia is the place for you, I think. Second, are you going to bring back bloopers, or you should do a whole episode on bloopers? And let's see, I haven't heard too much about your visits to Mexico.
Have you ever seen me mess up? There's honestly, my nickname at first was 10 Take Rob, because I was trying to memorize. And yeah, there's plenty of bloopers to choose from. It's a good idea. Going through all that footage and finding them is the hard part, but yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. Marissa asked about Mexico. Mexico City was awesome. Mexico, we went to the Yucatan. We want to go back. The Tourism Bureau turned me off a little bit, so if I go back, I'll go without them. They just were arrogant, and I thought not doing the Mexican people justice, because they should be, trying to get people there. But, with what's going on in Mexico, we thought it would be a great opportunity to show that it's safe, that there are safe areas, there are places you can go. And I was just recently in, believe it or not, Cancun, and you can have an authentic travel experience in a place like Cancun, because there's also Playa del Carmen. You can get outside the tourist zone in Cancun where people live. And people live, even if you go to a touristy area, there's a place where people live, and that's where I try to go and hang out, because you get a more insight into that culture. And then sometimes I'm just lazy like everybody else, man. I just want to hang out by the beach and not think too much or plan. And, a place like Cancun would fit the bill. Plus, I was on my way to Cuba, so it worked out,
All right, guys. So we are pretty much at 58 minutes. I don't want to take his whole day. He needs to get these episodes on television as soon as possible. He can get his email up and running. But what I do want to make sure that we touch upon is how people can find you, how they can. Obviously, we're on Facebook right now on your channel, but I want to make sure that people who might see this later can find you and know more about you. So let people know your social media so they can follow you, and also your website.
Yeah, so the website's rawtravel.tv, and basically all social media is RawTravel.tv. So it's facebook.com, RawTravel.tv, Twitter, same thing, and Instagram, same thing. Just tried my first Snapchat. It didn't have volume, so I got to work on that. Social media, I'm not too good at it, guys. I apologize. But, I just want to say a thank you to, seriously, all the Facebook friends and people who are supporters. Every encouraging word means a lot. Obviously there's always going to be a troll or two out there that says something. I put them in the Haters Hall of Fame. And the thing is, the show is about being positive, and you guys are. And, that's very fulfilling. It's the most fulfilling part of all this, for sure, are having people, it looks like, enjoy the show, and we appreciate it. And I appreciate your words of encouragement. And, feel free, to critique. Just, tell us what you think, and it's all good, man. Thank you guys for watching.
Guys, so I am Carlos Phoenix. I am on the Lounge Network, where I've been for the past 8 years doing these type of shows. Not live. This is new. This is little episode number 2, live, where we're interacting with you, getting questions from you. But you can catch me on RealTLN on Twitter and Carlos Phoenix on Facebook, and the Lounge Magazine on Facebook. That's what the website used to be called, and now it's theloungenetwork.com. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your questions. And thank you so much, Robert, for your hospitality and also allow me to shoot this here. We used to do it, virtually with my studio. My computer died, so this is a great alternative. Facebook Live, and I'm going to thank T-Mobile, even though they're not a sponsor. Normally, I am broadcasting using cellular service, and we still get this type of quality, so it's fantastic. Okay, thanks again, guys. But I think that's the end of the show. I think we did a good job. We did. Yeah, no problem.
back live, man. I hope we did okay. Thank you, guys. Oh, we'll do it again. We'll do it again, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day.